certainly didn't expect Andy Roddick to play the way that he did. He was brilliant. He played better than anybody had thought he ever could. So that was fantastic to see him do so well. He's been runner-up a couple of times to Federer, and of course to go all that way, for that marathon match. Certainly the final set as well, just went on, and it was disappointing for him not to get through, but Federer was just a little bit better on the day. I suppose once Nadal went out, we all expected Andy Murray to get through, and Andy Roddick was the surprise of the tournament. So it was great effort for him, and at the end the final was just sensational.
Yeah, and just in terms of Andy Roddick, Pat, very unlucky to lose out in the final, as you said. If he can get that bit of consistency into his game, do you think he could be the one to challenge Nadal and Federer?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, but he's the way he played at Wimbledon, he really could, and he certainly has, with that serve that he's got and a fantastic forehand as well. He's always going to be a threat. If he can, if he can put that consistently, which he seems to. But the rest of his game is sort of a bit hot and cold, and it certainly showed us at all Wimbledon that he can put it together for a whole tournament. So, particularly the backhand return and the backhand passing shot. I think he probably had a really hot run. I don't know if he can keep it up all the time, but we'll certainly be looking, at the summer here, in the United States and the US Open to see if he's continued on his good form.
Yeah, no, Pat, the Nadal-Federer rivalry has obviously taken on a bit of a breather over the last couple of Grand Slam events, but it's the US Open coming up in a couple of weeks' time, so it could resume there, but neither player coming into the tournament with the best preparation. Both lost this morning, actually, in Montreal, but at the same time, it would take a brave punter to back anyone else outside of those two to win it.
Well, it's right. It's the first tournament of the summer for them, so you don't read too much into it, but I realistically, Federer's got to be the favourite. He's won US Open the last 5 years in a row, and he's been brilliant winning it too. It's not like he's struggled through, and I think he plays his best tennis in New York. To be honest, I think it's the best tennis of his year. He seems to produce his best all the time. So you certainly couldn't bet against him. And Nadal will take a few matches to get going. He's been out for a few months, but Murray is of course going to be knocking on the door, and there's always a surprise packet somewhere along the line. Well, it always makes it exciting. There's a whole bunch of good young up and coming players that are around now. Del Potro and Tsonga, as we talked about, who are great players, and defeating the guys today. And so we'll have to just wait and see.
Yeah, Pat, Federer has obviously he's achieved everything there is to achieve in tennis at this stage. 15 Grand Slam titles. Do you think he might lose some of the appetite now that he's broken that record?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, he does time his schedule very well. He doesn't overplay. I think now that he's got the family as well, he'll want to spend time with them. And I think he's sort of used to not having to play so much. Some players do well playing a lot of tennis, and others sort of prefer to stay fresh. And I think he's one of them. I think Nadal will learn that over in the near future. I think he plays too much. I think the fresher he is, the better, obviously, for his knees. So I think that there's always something to learn, and this is another sort of challenge for Federer. He's won just about everything. But to be honest, I'd like to see a couple of guys right up there knocking on his door. He hasn't really had a threat other than Nadal, who's of course has been injured recently. So I think it'd be nice to see a few guys really step up and say, okay, Roger, you've had it too easy your own way for too long. Let's see how you go with more than one challenge there.
Yeah, who do you think are the best candidates to challenge him, Pat?
Well, Murray's the obvious one. Nadal, of course, is up there already, but Djokovic, has not had particularly good couple of years, I don't think. Novak Djokovic from Serbia. I'd like to see him improve a bit. I think he can do. He's a very good player when he's hot, but he has his patches. So I think he needs a little bit of improving, but I think he's a real threat as well. I think there's Tsonga, there's Del Potro as well from Argentina, Tsonga from France. They're guys that are getting better all the time. So Tsonga tends to be a bit injury prone, but so those are the obvious bunch of guys, along with Roddick seems to be in good form, and hopefully they'll be able to challenge a bit more than just the odd win, upset win against Federer.
Yeah, no, I know you've probably been asked this question a few times, Pat, but is Federer the greatest ever in your opinion?
I would not like to say who the greatest ever, because I don't know. I think it's a bit of a crazy question, to be honest. It's nice. It's a nice one to say, and of course I've been asked a lot lately, of course, because since he's got the most Grand Slams. And I think you have to look at the era. I think you have to look at technology. I think you have to look at who he's played. To be honest, he hasn't played. He's beaten a lot of guys that have, that have been lucky to get there. And then there's Nadal, who's been, of course, the better player of recently. So he's really only had one challenge. If you look at the players of the great eras, they have had a little bit of luck with the guys that have really chalked up a lot of Grand Slams. They've had a bit of luck with who they've played. I mean, Sampras for a few years really didn't play too many players. Then of course, he had Agassi, and he had Ivanisevic, and then he had Rafter, and he had all these guys, Courier, whatever, Todd Martin. So he had a good bunch of guys, but initially he didn't particularly, And then, but the golden era was where Lendl was winning matches and Borg, and you had there was a lot of great champions. You had to beat a champion to win. Semi-final and quarterfinals and semi-finals onwards, and it just hasn't happened in this era. So it's a bit hard to say who the best is. And I say, well, I go look at Rod Laver and say, well, Rod Laver, he won I think 12 Grand Slams, 11 or 12 Grand Slams, and he was banned for 6 years at his peak of his career, and yet he won the Grand Slam twice at either end of that ban. So he might have well chalked up 20, 25, 30 even Grand Slams. So, but of course, he went professional. So, it's very, very hard to say. And those guys were using wooden rackets, and these guys now are using super powerful rackets. So it's an interesting thing, but he certainly is a very graceful player, and there's not a shot that he can't do. And as an athlete, he's absolutely superior as well. So he would, if there was such a thing, he'd certainly be in the top 5 or top 10 players of all time.
Now, Pat, you mentioned Andy Murray earlier on, of course. He got to the final at Flushing Meadows last year. He hasn't managed to win an elusive Grand Slam title yet, but do you think it's only a matter of time?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think he is just a matter of time. He's a very, very good player. He's getting better all the time. He's learning all the time, and he has a couple of bad losses, but I think he picks it up from there. It'll be very interesting to see how he goes the next couple of years, but certainly the next 12 months will be huge. We'll see how he goes from really coming up now when he got to the final to the next US Open, next Wimbledon. So, but I expect him to be very, very close to getting he'll be pushing in the finals if he doesn't get one at all this year, and probably the next years he will grab one. And
how about yourself, Pat? How's life for you these days? I believe you're still playing a bit, of course.
Yeah, I'm playing a bit of the old guys circuit. I'm pretty busy doing the old guys circuit, a bit of commentating and writing on the tennis, and playing, and do a bit of stuff for charity and the goal, and nabbing tennis nets. You see, stealing tennis nets from the All England Club. That's probably my the thing that I'm best at doing at the moment.
And I believe your son as well is coming up the ranks. Can we expect him to be challenging Federer or Nadal in a few years' time?
I don't know about that. He's pretty young, so we'll wait and see. He's very keen. They've got one very keen tennis player, so we'll see how he goes. No pressure on him though.
And I mentioned, of course, earlier on, Pat, that Wimbledon, of course, is very close to your heart, having won there in 1987. Obviously, it was the highlight of your career, but is Wimbledon the most special Grand Slam event for you, given your success there? Obviously, as well, the Australian Open, you played in 2 finals there, and that is your home Grand Slam. Yeah, well, the home Grand Slams are also always very personal, and I was very disappointed to lose 2 close finals, very close finals. So that was a big disappointment for me. Probably the one thing that I wish I had done in my career. But the 2 things I did aim for was to win the Davis Cup for Australia and to win Wimbledon. And I did those 2 things. In amongst all the injuries that I had. So look, I had a great career. Played in probably the greatest era of tennis in the 80s and the 90s, and played against some super champions. So it was a pretty good career, I got to say. I'm very happy with it, and still lucky to be able to still play out there, and people are quite interested to watch us. I think we're a bit like dinosaurs, really. We're virtually extinct. We do serve and volley. We do like to touch shots, and we don't see too many of those on the circuit these days. Well, Pat Cash, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you here on the Big Red Bench. Thanks a million for talking to us. Thank you.